Yeah, yeah. Welcome everyone. So this is the episode 3 of Qualz.ai Research and AI webinar. So in this webinar, we discuss various topics that are related to primary research, AI, and everything correlated with it and around it, and everything that affects it. So today with us, we have Dr. Damodar, and the topic of the conversation today is going to be about the research ethics. We are gonna talk a lot about integrity, privacy, data governance, in especially as it relates to AI assisted research. And Dr. Damodar is the co-founder and chief growth officer at Data Safeguard, and he leads the AI-driven advancements in data privacy and fraud prevention. He leads the company's global growth strategy, and he oversees marketing, partnerships, investor relations, and analyst engagement. And he manages relationships with various stakeholders, advisors, analysts, and other partners. He's also a pioneer member of Wipro, uh, aftermarket service transformation, and auto insight startups. So very, very excited to have you with us, Dr. Damodar. We also have Dr. Tashi, and I'll let you do a brief intro after I pass it over. So Dr. Tashi is a qualitative researcher with over a decade of experience in government and corporate sectors, including Uber, Starbucks, and Google DeepMind, academia, and nonprofits. He has a foundation in social science and anthropology, and he specializes in integrating AI with qualitative methodologies. And he's passionate about ethical and inclusive research. So super excited about this panel. And I'm your host, Prajwal, and I am currently the CEO of Qualz.ai. In Qualz.ai, we do AI assisted and automated primary research, especially focusing on the conversational aspects. And very excited to have you. So let me pass it over to you, Dr. Damodar, for an intro from your side.
No, thank you, Dr. Prajwal. Pleasure meeting you, Dr. Tashi. Pleasure to be here. I think you have already introduced me. So yeah, so I'm based in US and looking forward to the webinar and talk about the points we have laid down. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. Before we get started, Dr. Tashi, do you want to say a few words?
Yeah, exactly. A few words. You've already introduced me, so nothing really I can add. I'm just looking forward to the conversation ahead.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. So let's get it started with the ethical concerns in AI, right? So we've been hearing and seeing a lot of advancements in AI, of course. So there is lots and lots of potential, and there have been lots of applications, lots of startups, and lots of innovation happening in the space. So Dr. Damodar, maybe can you talk about like the AI of today, right? And how do you see a very different landscape in terms of like privacy, ethics, and those topics?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Prajwal. So yeah, it's a great topic. The understanding of ethical concerns in AI. So all of us know AI is literally transforming our world at
Mm-hmm.
an unprecedented pace. But as we build machines that can predict, analyze, and decide, the question arises, are we building systems that align with human values? Or are we unintentionally embedding biases that will shape our future in a ways we cannot yet imagine? Right? So this is the question, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why responsible AI, anyway, we will discuss further. And clearly, you have articulated the privacy aspect. No, privacy matters. We have been knowing this since our childhood, right? Privacy
Mm-hmm.
matters. But the privacy or the data breaches, if I give you a statement, every 39 seconds in this world, in this wonderful world, there is a data breach
Wow.
globally. It can be,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, North America, South America, Europe, UK, Asia Pac, India, Nepal, wherever. Every 39 seconds there is a breach. And we all know that.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the data breaches are not recorded, but the high profile data breaches, as we all know, that is recorded and the remediation cost. I mean, each data breach cost 9.45 million in US alone.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
Average, a database globally costs, I think, 4.45 million. That means
Mm-hmm.
when data breach happens, I mean, how the system should work. And it is not only for data breach. Because of the data breach, the consumer trust the organization, their government, enterprise, business organizations, actually, they lose the trust of the customer. If customer trust
Mm-hmm.
is lost, everything is lost, right? So this is my opening remark. We will talk about the key ethical implication today and tomorrow. That also will focus. What are the challenges we'll focus? But also, I would like to hear from Dr. Tashi. Yeah, and you, Prajwal, as well. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Tashi. So, I mean, as Dr. Damodar said, like um, data is the cornerstone. Like it's what drives like most of the AI applications as well as enterprises, right? And in the sector that we operate in as well. So there's lots and lots of data that we collect from people, and sometimes it's very personal. And we pay a lot of attention to privacy and safeguarding, but it's something that we cannot really compromise on, right? So maybe from your perspective, Dr. Tashi, what are your thoughts on it?
100%. And like Dr. Damodar said, it's a great topic, but it is also a very important topic that we need to cover, right? And the numbers of data breaches that you've mentioned, it's staggering, but it's not surprising, because we're surrounded by machines, we're surrounded by AI. It's ubiquitous. So I think this is a prime time that we talk about how we mitigate that, especially me being on the research side. For us, the participants' safety and their data privacy is everything, right? Just like for business people, their consumers' trust is everything. For us, the research data, the ethics, the integrity is everything. So definitely a very interesting topic. But I don't know the numbers, but I'm surprised, but not surprised.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
If I can
So,
add on
go
a
ahead.
little bit on the key ethical implications today or tomorrow, you will be surprised. We all know that there are many examples like uh, bias hiring algorithms. If some large
Mm-hmm.
enterprise, I have recently heard, I should not utter the enterprise name,
Mm-hmm.
there was a bias hiring algorithm put it, or
Mm-hmm.
some facial recognition misidentification. That means
Mm-hmm.
if I'm Damodar Sahu, if the identification or the recognition pattern will disalign me or misidentify me as somebody, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that guy is hired. So you see how these things can actually turn it around, right? And second, the futuristic concern or the implication on tomorrow, AI taking autonomous actions without human oversight.
Mm-hmm.
That means what? The ethical use of generative AI and its potential to spread misinformation. And it happens. Let it be in political scenario, geo conflict, in a war zone, religious conflict, right? How people are actually potentially spread the misinformation. We all experience that. So
Mm-hmm.
what I should emphasize today, ethics is not just a checkbox where you will just go and ethics like we go and do our consent. Okay, I should receive marketing material or I should not. So
Mm-hmm.
ethics is not just a checkbox, it's a journey to ensure AI serves humanity with responsible. So that's why you call responsible AI.
Yeah,
Make sense? Yeah.
that's a great summarization. I mean, just like piggybacking on what you mentioned, even in our industry, uh, we've been um, we've been hearing about lots and lots of like agentic workflows, right? In
Yeah.
fact, we have implemented some of them when agents go and interview people, right? And they go and ask follow-up questions, and there's a whole lot of paths they can actually take when the conversation goes on, right? And building safeguards, it's a brand new field because the AI of yesterday, like a couple of years ago, used to be very different, where you have a particular input, and then you have some purpose for that AI, and there's an output, and that's it, right? But even then, the system that it's embedded in already could do a lot of harm. There could be lots and lots of um, misuses of that AI. But the AI of now, where, like you mentioned, there might not even be a human in the loop, right, in the whole
Right.
process, because it's all agents, right? Agents talking to agents. So that's very interesting. And how do we try to even like bring like human in the loop when we're trying to go scale, 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 right? Because that's been the big push with agents is, hey, we don't need humans, right? Let's just put them out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe like from both of you, I'd love to hear like in the era of like agents, right? And when we're trying to scale, what are your thoughts on it? And then maybe after that, Dr. Tashi can chime in as well.
Sure. So let me address the transparency and fairness or the challenges in AI bias, right? As I
Mm-hmm.
told you earlier, the responsible AI, ethical AI, let's say how the bias data sets can lead to a skewed outcomes, right?
Mm-hmm.
All the challenge of making AI decision transparent and understandable. Same thing. Like I can give example of in political scenario, geo conflict, war zone, right? So
Mm-hmm.
transparency is not a optional. It is the bridge to user trust and adoption. Once I
Mm-hmm.
lost my trust with somebody, maybe at you or a company or a government, it's very difficult to gain that trust.
Yeah.
So transparency is not optional again. So it is the
Mm-hmm.
bridge to the user's trust and the adoption, right? So whoever making that AI transparency, fairness, unbiased, ensure that again human values are conscious and it should not actually bias. Second thing, we talk about the impact on the marginalized groups, right? Let's
Mm-hmm.
say we predict something, let's say predict you of polishing this appropriately targeted certain communities or access inequities in AI driven healthcare, for an example, right? And let's
Mm-hmm.
say if I take an example, I mean, we are out of the COVID, and we know how that happens, right? And the pattern was different in different countries, different state. Even US alone, let's say the healthcare system in Michigan, I'm based in Michigan versus the California, different. It's a totally cold versus little warmer place, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody can actually take those, bridge those data and take it, he can identify, what are the diseases normally happens in Michigan, and some state sponsor crime may happen, and it's happening,
Oh
right?
wow. Mm.
Yeah. So this is so call to action is it's our responsibility. We being the startup, we being the enterprise, we being the government. It's our responsibility to create AI that uplifts everyone. There should not be any bias. It should
Mm.
uplifts everyone, especially the most vulnerable.
Mm.
For an example, protected health informations are breached. Your personal finance informations are breached. I'll give you an example, recent example. Now in US, it's the time to file your return,
Mm-hmm.
IRS, right? Internal Revenue Services. And I'm astonished to see people are calling and saying, we will give you a free return and you will come to know how much you can save. And there
Mm-hmm.
are some scammers around us, and they will definitely manipulate your tax data, maybe W2 or whatever, right? And they can take one-time money, and they're unknown.
Right.
You never know who is the CPA, right? So you see
Yeah.
how it is all, I mean, say bias calls coming, So even if you say they are behind you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's our responsibility, and we should always keep our like not two eyes, it's four eyes should open, and you should see that AI that uplifts everyone, and especially the most needed people, they should not impact it. Like digital scam happening, right, across the world, and
Right.
they target especially for the senior citizen
Mm-hmm.
mostly, right? Or if they target your social profile, your location, they can play around psychologically, right? So how
Mm-hmm.
we can be aware of, and they're all, I mean, it's a big scams happening in digital stuff. It's a personal level, right? So we should be very, very careful. And yeah, again, human values cannot be compromised with the AI creating a havoc in our system. Of course, AI is for good, but we should have a very responsible, unbiased, fairness, and transparency way of doing business. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, that is that is really interesting because like the whole field of phishing and social engineering and stuff like that, right? Although on the detection side, there is like more AI, so you can start to detect certain patterns and anomalies, and that kind of field moved on. Like it's still developing, but on the flip side, now like the scammers and the bad actors can use these AI agents, right? So very similar to how what type of AI we use to have conversations with people. Very similar, very like friendly. Those types
Yeah,
of AI agents can be deployed at scale. So it's a whole different world. So it's very very interesting. What are your thoughts on it, Dr. Tashi?
Absolutely, 100% agree with both of you. And I think about transparency, right? I think it's almost like we say in our country, right? The political leaders are not transparent because they have something to hide.
Hmm.
So I think that has a negative connotation whenever you're not being transparent, and especially with AI, because there's so many things that's happening too fast, right? And there's so many uncertainties. So I think transparency is a must, and I think trust, ethical, all these are interconnected. So I think 100%. And to answer about the other part, which is being biased, and I think what reminds me when Dr. Damodar gave the example is of social and policy research. I think AI tends to be biased.
Mm.
At least in the inception, a few years ago or like a few months ago, I don't know. Um, what happens when that happens is that especially in policy research, you're trying to do research to get insights to make political or policy decisions. And when those are biased towards certain group of people, and for sure, I'm talking about the historically marginalized communities, right? And those are reflected in policies. What happens when that happens? Right? And again,
yeah,
there is injustices happening, there is inequality happening, all sorts of social and economical and political problems, and these are very likely. And I think when it comes to transparency and not being biased, I think I don't have a definite answer, and I don't know how long human can be apart or human can be in the loop, but I think we should be in the loop. We, as in human, should be in the loop as long as we can, or just this is a very tricky question. I really don't know. I mean, in our in Qualz.ai, we have human at the very center. We don't give complete power to the AI because, again, like you said, all these things, right? Because I think human insight shouldn't be overlooked. But at some point, it will be completely automated. I think human will be out of the loop at some point. I don't know when that will be, but until when we should try to make sure that dependency, complete dependency, and complete automation should be critical and should be thought out very carefully.
yeah.
But again, who knows?
Yeah, yeah. So one more question for you, Dr. Tashi, and then maybe we can ask Dr. Damodar for like, what does the solution space looks like, right, in the future. So my question is very related to how we, collect and like primary data and then research like communities like Dr. Damodar mentioned, like marginalized communities, how we do it now versus what the near future, which is like not like 10 years from now or 5 years from now, right? It's just like around the corner. So the future is that instead of having people go out and just have these conversations with people, collect the data, much more slower process, but a little bit more human process, right? So now this is expanding where AI, which to me is like intelligent, right? But it's a alien kind of intelligence. It has a different set of biases. It's not the same kind of biases as people, right? Every person will have their own biases. We're not free of that. But the AI bias is very different, and I like to think of it as something really alien, right? So it has like these quirks, and it has these preconceived notions. Some because of data, some because of training. It's a and then I mean, besides all the privacy type concerns, right? There is still a viewpoint that AI brings that is a little bit different than what humans bring, right? And we can try to mitigate that, but it's still there. So when data is collected from an AI with like follow-up questions and all that kind of stuff in primary research at scale, right? So this probably introduces a different type of bias, right? So how do you, I mean, maybe like just outline some of the challenges that might occur in this type of world where AI is in the loop more and more, right? And then maybe we can pass it on to Dr. Damodar to see, like, what does the solution space look like?
Um, I think that's a very interesting question. First of all, so the bias, I think, again, let me reiterate and say that human are not immune to bias too. Before AI, we human do all the work, and we are very likely to make some decisions that are based on our biases, right? But with AI, I'm concerned with technical biases. By technical biases, I mean, I'm worried about the consequences because it might make less, but the consequences could be manyfold. And to be honest, I'm an anthropologist by training, so I don't really have an engineering solution for that. But I think, like you said, I think humans should be in the loop. For example, if AI is taking interview of a participant, you should take all the caution, in prompt engineering to make sure that it's not biased. Because the thing about AI is it depends on data that is out there, right? And the data out there is definitely not good in a lot of situations because historically there's been, some perceptions, against historically marginalized people, all this racism and everything. So they might be biased in that sense. But when human is in the loop, I think definitely double checking. Again, this is where I think it's like a handover, sort of like you continually make sure the AI is not making any mistake.
Right.
When we do research, we have at least two collaborators check our work. Now, that could be to look biases, but also to identify some mistakes, right? In case of
Right.
AI, it could be that. And I think for me, this just reminds me of my childhood. When we're trying to teach how to learn bicycles to the kids,
Right.
we
I
don't
was thinking
let
the
them
same thing.
go until you're 100% sure, or as best as you can be, right? That they can ride on their own. Until then, you have to hold hands, and in this case, until then, human has to be in the loop. I don't know what other solution can we, even if they're best engineering solutions, you cannot trust without verifying, right? So I think
Got
that is
it.
what I
Yeah.
I have in mind, actually.
Yeah, training wheels. So we're not ready for like fully autonomous, even if we think we're ready, right? So let's just keep the training
Yeah,
wheels on for a little bit. Dr. Damodar, I know like you're
absolutely.
at Data Safeguard, right? So we'd love to hear about like what you guys are building, right? What the solution space looks like in this new and upcoming interesting age, especially from a bias perspective, but anything else you'd like to talk
Absolutely.
about?
Absolutely. I agree with Dr. Tashi. So he talked about this solution piece. So even I will little touch upon the government responsibility, right? And then I'll come back to what actually we are building in data privacy space or synthetic fraud. I can give you one example. So let's
Mm-hmm.
say though we have information law or IT law, and again the privacy law like starting with GDPR 2016-17, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in CCPA and out of 50 states in US also, most of these states they have got their privacy law. And though there is not a pan America or pan US specific law, I feel that maybe during this tenure of this government it should come. Like India has recently adopted India DPDP Act
Mm-hmm.
2023, and Singapore, Dubai, Australia, Japan, most of the countries on earth have their privacy law, and the
Mm-hmm.
privacy law are actually stringent. And recently we have seen like large enterprises, like I can example it say in public, let's say Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
Uber,
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
Salesforce, they have paid billions
Mm-hmm.
dollar fine, because of the privacy breach. So
Mm-hmm.
similarly for AI, though some countries or most of them have their AI law, but it's not so stringent, not so robust. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't see any penalty has been paid to any AI company, maybe startup or maybe large company, but that has to be very, very stringent, robust.
Mm-hmm.
People should know, enterprise should know, government should know if anything mishappens, then they should be penalized, right? So I
Got it.
think government is also responsible coming up with a very stringent, very robust, law on AI, right?
Mm-hmm.
A
Mm-hmm.
responsible AI or ethical AI you're talking about, right? So that I
Right.
think I have not seen, though though I think countries are in discussion, they have their standard privacy law, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not so stringent. Like privacy laws are coming. If you
Mm-hmm.
see the Gartner report in December, I think almost 75% countries on earth have their some privacy law. So that also should actually transcend to AI law.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
coming back to the bias we are talking about, it's there in public domain. The fraud or the synthetic fraud. Synthetic
Mm-hmm.
fraud is nothing but somebody can create. Let's say we three of us are here and visible to people, and we all know our names. And somebody can, let's say, if somebody has the data of all my personal data, my financial data, or your as well as Dr. Tasi, somebody can create a Frankenstein identity and
Right.
can create havoc in our life, right? Possible, it is happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that is called
Right.
no synthetic fraud. Somebody can
Mm-hmm.
create a duplicate identity. Let's say my name can be represented Dr. Tasi with my picture, and maybe
Mm-hmm.
your SSN number, Dr. Prajwal, and
Mm-hmm.
somebody can claim unemployment bonus or something like that, right? It is all
Right.
happening, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so yeah, so that's why we are focusing more on unbiased transparency AI system. And I
Uh-huh.
can always say that yeah, government is also equally responsible, and they should actually drive it with proper law, so that people will be binded with those laws, and they should not think of doing anything unethical, unbiased. Yeah.
Right.
And in data safeguard, we are AI powered. I'm not here to promote data
Mm.
safeguard, but as you asked, let
No,
me
would
just
love to hear
talk.
about it. I mean, that was going to be my next question is like, I mean, we are both Dr. Tashi and I are in the qualitative research and AI, this kind of like
Right.
intersection space, right? So we are experts in this space and how to build AI that can solve this type of problem is how do
Yeah.
we scale qualitative research and like collect better information seeking AI and stuff like that, right? But would love to hear like for a company
Absolutely.
like ours or for anybody that's even involved in quality research, right? How do we maybe like work with somebody like data safeguard, or how do we learn from and implement these kinds of things in our own practices in the
Absolutely.
upcoming world? Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll give you very high level what we do at Data Safeguard. We are
Yeah.
a California, Santa Clara based headquarter company, and we have developed
Mm-hmm.
the most comprehensive AI powered data privacy platform, which
Mm-hmm.
is helping organizations across nature. It can be large, medium, small, and to meet
Mm-hmm.
their information privacy, communication
Mm-hmm.
privacy, and individuals' privacy compliance, and avoid hefty fines. As I told you, fines are in billions, right? And India has recently adopted which 250 crore fine, close to 45 million fine,
Wow.
right? Yeah. So the platform is built using our homegrown AI engine to meet
Uh-huh.
global privacy act compliance like GDPR or CCPA in a automated manner. So
Wow.
the
Mm-hmm.
platform can be deployed in your data center or in your
Mm-hmm.
cloud container within 2 weeks, and it
Oh
can
wow.
show
Wow.
ROI from the month one itself in 4 weeks. So that is the fancy
Mm-hmm.
of our system. And we claim, I mean, we stand tall among our competitors. We
Mm-hmm.
have the 7 core tenets of privacy of the platform built
Mm-hmm.
upon the privacy by design framework. We talk about the
Mm-hmm.
digital by design. So privacy by design framework consists of 7 core tenets like universal consent management. That is critical. Before I do
Mm-hmm.
business with my consumer, I should take their consent, right? Then
Mm-hmm.
confidential data discovery. Where are my confidential data? Where are my credit card information? Where is my PAN number in Indian case or Aadhaar? In US
Mm-hmm.
case, where is my SSN number, right? It is
Mm-hmm.
all floating across the system, right? So confidential data discovery, then
Mm-hmm.
privacy impact assessment, data subject access requests, confidential data redaction. If the enterprise found my confidential information are floating around, they can redact it before the data
Mm-hmm.
breach happens, right? And the
Mm-hmm.
compliance audit, and of course, all put together, we have a data privacy management solutions. So all these modules are prepared and pre-integrated in a single Docker image, and it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
need any integration work from any technology team, right? It's very simple. So
Got
yeah,
it. So
if you
it's
are
like
listening,
you have your
yeah,
cloud, you have all your data there. So so in our case, like we're collecting like hundreds, like thousands of like interviews, right? So all of them
yeah,
we're storing in the cloud. So
yeah,
what you're building is something that can almost like go through all of them and figure out where the confidential data is that is missed, right?
Yes.
Because you can look at it at the surface level, but it's really hard to make those connections of breach of privacy that are a little bit deeper, like the
Yeah.
example you mentioned. Because lots and lots of different little bits of information, you can infer a lot of things that could be PII, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. The PII,
Okay.
it can be
Awesome.
protected health information. It can be your finance data, right? Yeah. Well said.
Hmm.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
that
and
is on real time. We can identify where are those PII or PHI, and on
okay.
periodically you can redact the system from the so that even though data breach happens, those data will be taken by the fraudster, but the data will be of no use to those fraudsters. So that is the
Ah,
concept of the
got it,
system.
got it. So you can not just like scan and then figure out where the potential violations of
Yes,
or breaches could be, right? And then make you
absolutely.
compliant with all the different rules and regulate, because there are a lot, right? So I was looking at the
Yes,
GDPR report, and that's a lot. And California has their own. For a
yes,
small company like ours, we don't have the bandwidth of like going through all that and ensuring we're compliant. But like you said, the fines, right? So there's a carrot and a stick, because
yeah,
it's great to be compliant because we can advertise and stuff like that. We can keep a name, but it's very, very difficult because of all the fines. So that's
absolutely.
amazing. Dr. Tashi, maybe you can talk a little bit about where have you seen like these types of data privacy type issues coming up in qualitative research. I know that we do transcription and then we can redact something at the transcript level, right? And people like researchers can also go and redact some things. But what are the risks, I mean, in this industry?
So first of all, I'd like to say something. When Dr. Damodar was talking about how they secure and data, back in the day, I've heard my professor tell that, in IRB, you have to tell how are you going to store the data. And back then, it
Right.
used to be paper data. So they literally write that I will lock in this metal cabinet, lock it with a small lock, and then keep the key with me at all times. But we are not in that space anymore, and
Right.
Yeah,
modern problems require modern solutions, and I think that's
yeah,
what you are doing, making the lock, and keeping it safe. So I appreciate what you're doing to the entire research community and anyone that is trying to apply AI in their work. But yeah, in academia, we have IRB that ensures that we institutional review board that will
Yeah.
look at your protocol, and if they send something, then they will reject it. But before you get to data, you have to submit a proposal where you talk about consent. Whether the way you are collecting data, the people you are collecting data from, are they aware? Are they at risk? And if they're at risk, what kind of risk are they at? You have to outline everything.
Hmm.
And I think if you look at IRB of any research project, that's being very transparent, right? So, but once you're done that, I mean, as a researcher, I take full precaution. I go through all the consent form. If I have collected data, I ensure that the participant don't reveal any PII, personally identifiable information. But I don't
Right.
stop there, right? Even after I collect data, I double check and triple check at times to see if something slipped. Now, that's
Hmm.
very likely to happen. And
Hmm.
then what we do is we store the data in a enterprise level encrypted Dropbox. But when AI is in the loop, I really don't know. But I think from my perspective right now, I just want to try again and again and again and see where the potential problems is and leaks are.
Hmm.
But at the same time, I don't have a concrete solution. I think at Qualz.ai, we try to make our AI do what we do as a human. But again, the problems are not always same. And how are the problems different when AI is in the loop? And how should we take caution? How should we handle the solution, those problems? Is going to be quite a learning curve, I think.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I mean, we've seen the same thing happen over and over again, where like one side moves a little bit forward, and now we're taking the human out of the loop in terms of collecting the data. But that has unlocked our ability to collect so much data, right? So now, like the manual process of reviewing, and I mean, going back to the example of like locking all the papers, right? So that's that ship has sailed. There's no papers anymore. It's all online. It's all in the cloud.
Yeah,
But it used to be that you do 20 interviews, that's and the researcher can look through it and then remove everything before storage. But now we're doing thousands of interviews, thousands of data collection, right? All these things are coming up, and it's all conversation. So even if you tell people that, hey, you're not supposed to tell me your name, right? In the middle of the conversation, people will be like, they'll just like slip it, right?
Yep.
Or they might talk about something health related when they are really not supposed to in the interview. So now all
Right.
these pieces of data form like pieces of these transcript, and since we're doing thousands of them, it's not humanly possible to look through all that, right? So the solution seems like, Dr. Damodar, we just build
yeah,
smarter AI systems that
Right.
can not just scan all these data, but also identify where those potential breaches are and automatically fix them too. Sounds like, right?
Right.
absolutely,
Yeah, and I
absolutely.
just like to add that when I say things like this, I might sound like I'm against using AI. I'm not, right? Like I
Mm-hmm.
want to be able to interview hundreds and thousands of people, but at the same time, I cannot personally check all those transcripts. It's humanly literally impossible.
Right.
So there is this
Right.
challenge of scalability, but what comes with scalability, right?
Right.
And I think that is something we have to keep in mind.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well said. Actually, these days we say privacy is not a luxury. It's a fundamental human rights, right? And every
Uh-huh.
enterprise, every government has to safeguard our personal information, sensitive information, right? So
Mm-hmm.
there are few best practices, rightly you said, so let's say the moment AI processes data, how it can be, processed ethically, right? Then the role of AI in privacy, let's say data anonymization or encryption, right? And regular audits. That's why I told you, right, how we are doing that privacy impact assessment, compliance audit, periodically. So ensure that we are compliant with GDPR, CCPA, and other emerging regulations already come up and coming up, right? And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so we use AI to detect and anonymize PII in a real time, ensuring that data privacy without any compromising utility or security, right? And
Mm-hmm.
of course, privacy by design or by embedding AI-driven security protocols, even also I feel that organizations can stay uh, a step ahead of the bad actors, like the data
Mm-hmm.
breaches happens, right? So yeah, if you can do it periodically, then of course, even though the bad actors, the fraudsters will take your data, but the data will be of no use to them, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so these are the things we are focusing and we are what do you call encouraging enterprise to implement it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a brave new world. I mean, we have like problems that are created by just like utilizing AI and data collection and storage at scale. But with AI for good and responsible AI and the solutions like maybe data safeguard and also just like following the best practices like Dr. Tashi mentioned, like from the very
Yeah.
get-go, right? IRB and stuff. There are AI augmented like automated solutions that we should definitely start to adopt like right away, right? We can't just wait for, wait and see what happens. So that's been our approach in this realm as well. Dr.
Right.
Dashi, do you
But
have something? Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, yeah, I think the other thing is we have best practices, right? Like the when we humans are involved when AI wasn't there, and then we can try to implement those. But what do best practices look like, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the near future? I think those are likely to change as well, and I think we need to be very open to learning new things, adapt, and I think the best practices will have to adapt accordingly as well. The
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
best practices of yesterday, when you were using paper data, might
Yeah.
not be applicable in tomorrow's where the data are stored in the cloud, and there could be potential risk of deep fakes and all the consequences. So I think we have to keep that in mind as well.
Got it.
Agree.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one last question I had for Dr. Damodar was that we've been using we started this feature called like synthetic participants or AI
Yeah.
participants, right? So this is when a very hard to reach population and you need some insight so you can actually have AI take on personas of people and respond as if they belong to that or they are that particular person, right? So we are doing this solely for understanding a population that the information might be on the internet already, but it's very hard to reach, right? So very maybe it's in a Reddit group somewhere that people are discussing, right? But since AI has
Yeah.
already has all this information, it can take that persona and give some responses, synthetic agents, so to speak, right? So we know that just out of the bat, like very, very quick insights you can gain from that, but that's not the same as the insights in the world. But still, like lots and lots of the like data augmentation type like use cases in that space, right? Um, so all in all, just like lots and lots of AI in the loop processes to gain insights about what to do in the world for these organizations, right? So what's your advice or what's your take on next steps, or how do you suggest like an organization like ours, or like market research agencies, right? Companies that just are in this space of collecting lots and lots of like human data, or AI augmented data should approach this coming world.
No, no, absolutely. I mean, the traditional government framework struggle to keep up with the
Right.
AI's rapid evolution, right? So to
Mm-hmm.
match that, we have to have we have to introduce a practical enhancement, right? So let's say AI-driven governance tools are available, can automate
Mm-hmm.
your compliance check, like
Mm-hmm.
we talk about the compliance audit or the PIA, and detect anomalies, right, in advance
Mm-hmm.
and ensure that accountability at scale, right? You have to scale it up, right? And
Scale.
there are
Yep.
policies, yeah. And I told you there are policies also responsible at data handling, like best
Mm-hmm.
practices you have to do, right, for data collection, that the consent
Mm-hmm.
management, right? Even though I write a consent, I should not get any marketing call or email. Still, we get it, right? So these are against the rule, right? So the
Mm-hmm.
best practice for data collection only gather what is necessary,
Right.
or the enterprise earlier, I don't think they are doing today. They have a habit of collecting unnecessary data. What you will do with the data, right? So
Mm-hmm.
ensure that the data collected is really used properly, right? Only gather what
Mm-hmm.
is necessary. And of course, then the other one, best practices is secure storage and
Mm-hmm.
control sharing mechanism, right? You can't share those storage access to everybody, right? And we
Mm-hmm.
should have a sector specific policies, right? Let's say for HIPAA compliance is there for healthcare, right? And for banking, we have PCI DSS policy, right? Retail will have a different, government will have different. So uh, there should be a sector specific policies like HIPAA for healthcare, right? And healthcare, the protected health information are critical, to
Mm-hmm.
state or government, right? And it should not get breached. If you breach, there are a lot of havoc we can create among those patients or the citizen, right? And data governance, I always say that it's not about restricting innovation. So it is about enabling it responsibly, right? Data is money, right? We call it data is new oil, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that is required, but how we can handle and the governance is all about no. I don't say we should restrict innovation, but it's about handling with a responsible, right? So yeah, these are a couple of things, and of course we have to build accountability in the system. It is very
Mm-hmm.
important that appointing data protection officers. Now, in this case, if you see, DPOs are not a CISO, the Chief Information Security Officer. Chief Information
Mm-hmm.
Security Officer has a different role to play, and the data protection officers are like Chief Privacy Officer, Chief Risk Officer, Chief Compliance Officer, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it should not be mixed with your CIO organization or CISO
Oh,
organization, right? So
okay.
they should
Mm-hmm.
create audit. Yeah. So these are the thing. I think these days enterprise government is very proactive, and I think that our future would be safe and secure.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Damodar. So, Dr. Damodar, so we are like right at time to start taking questions now. We'd before we go there, I mean, we could talk on forever. So this is like such a very interesting topic here, just because it applies not just to like one sector, right, but across verticals, across industries, right? Any last thoughts from you, Dr. Tashi, before we move on to questions? We have some hand raised, and then
Yeah.
some questions that are coming in.
So absolutely, I think what Dr. Damodar said, right, about policies and being sector specific. And when ChatGPT first came, there was
Yeah.
this wave of a lot of discourses on AI and all those implications, right? And I went to one of these webinar by NSF, which
Mm-hmm.
was very much going to talk about ethics. And what I saw was people talking about uh, just that we need to be ethical and that all that. But there was not a lot of talk about how to do that. You know, and I think the government is trying to catch, right, policy wise. I think there are companies that are evolving and the technology itself evolving at a very rapid rate. And I think how can we ensure that the policies are well informed, right? Not just like
Yeah.
it's evidence based or something. So I feel like people like yourself, Dr. Damodar, has to be a part of that decision making, right? Who knows a lot about AI and data safety and privacy, and not just you, but people from different sectors. Like you said, the policy has to be sector specific, and therefore the experts from sector specific has to be representative, right? And I think the government should keep an open mind, but at the same time move fast by leveraging experts and knowledge of people like yourself from across disciplines. This is moving too fast, and I think they have their hand full in terms of, because so many things are uncertain. It's evolving. The policy they might have made yesterday might not work tomorrow because it has already evolved. Very challenging.
Well
Yeah,
said,
Yes.
thank
Dr.
you.
Tashi. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Tashi. Did you have some last thoughts, Dr. Damodar? We have some questions. Otherwise,
No, I last thought means I always wish that yeah we should build a safe and secure world, and AI is of course we can't, it is an inevitable, but yeah, how
right?
we can make it a little secure, safe for the humanity, right, for the citizen, that will take us along, and we always
Right.
say it's a wonderful world. It was, it will be in future, right? So let's.
Right. Yeah, like we're glad like there are people like you in the industry that are thinking about these things like deeply, right? So we can kind of follow along and implement the best practices in our own sectors. So one of the questions from the audience is, what are the potential risks of over-regulating AI in terms of privacy and data governance? Could it inadvertently slow innovation? They didn't mention who it's for, but I think Dr. Damodar, this is probably for you.
Sure. No, no, sure. I read it. Yeah, what are the potential risk of over-regulating AI in terms of privacy and data governance? Could it be?
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, so it's a yes or no. As if you heard Janet, right? So I always talk about how responsible we'll take the data, and if data are not required unnecessarily, let's not collect. And what we collect, let process is very bit responsible. And of
Hmm.
course, the privacy rules, regulations, the privacy acts are very stringent and robust. And
Hmm.
I see huge fine, not in millions and billions. So I'm
Wow.
sure if somebody will do some breach knowingly, again on human error or anything, the system doesn't allow them to keep the privacy, PII, PHI, or the sensitive or non-sensitive information. Of course, the government is there to regulate them. So,
Hmm.
but yeah, as I told you, we cannot restrict AI innovation. We should allow, but
Hmm.
we have to have within our boundary and ensure that the governance is in place, compliance is in place, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, if we move too fast and don't really uh, have those checks and balances in place, we might feel like we're taking a step forward. But what you're saying is that you might actually have to take a few steps back just because governance and regulation are catching up, and these things will not just go unnoticed, for sure, right? And there should be, from my perspective, you just have to have sandboxes for innovation, right? But before deploying to something super critical, right, have to have those check boxes, like your T's
Right.
crossed and your I's dotted before you go out. Otherwise, might might just be taking a few steps backward.
Absolutely.
Um, do you have any thoughts on this, Dr. Tashi, for the could AI or like the potential risks of over-regulating, slowing down innovation?
100%, 100%. And that's why we need, like I said, we need to rely on experts like Dr. Damodar, right? Like if there are people in government that don't know much about AI, they are trying to make rules and regulations that might
Right.
very likely happen. So it's all about who is the best person to go to talk about these things. And I think for me, it's more about the right person making the right decisions in the right space.
Right. All right. So the let's move on to the next question. There's a question about There have been notable cases of companies facing legal issues. There was a case involved with Clearview AI, I'm sure which Dr. Damodar might know about, a company that created a facial recognition system, and this led to legal violation. With this in mind, how can researchers use tools like data safeguard to ensure they protect people's privacy when using data from different countries in AI projects? I suppose it's also maybe related to, training the AI system. So
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
using data because that's how the fossil fuel of today's AI.
yeah. That's why, I told earlier that there should be a regular audit and where is my confidential data, So
Right.
confidential data discovery, if you see any system at this moment, if you just, if I, any banking or insurance or healthcare, if I just go and take
Hmm.
average my confidential data, there is nothing available at this moment, right? So
Okay.
that actually we should enable consumers or the citizen to understand
Hmm.
where is my confidential data. The moment enterprise identify where is my confidential data, then definitely they can safeguard it,
Right.
protect it, right? So that is
Hmm.
the, we call it CDD, right? So once your data is discovered, then definitely you can either redact it or you can put it in a safe place, right? So that is, and of course the privacy impact assessment based on the privacy law is very much required. Compliance audit is very much required. So yeah, so if you do it on regular basis, then I'm sure our entire system would be compliant to the respective GDPR or CCPA or India DPDP Act compliance, right? So
Right, yeah, and that's also important from like my background. I've been like a research scientist, have trained like lots and lots of
yeah,
like AI systems, right? So if there is some potential privacy related information that goes into the AI, right, it's not been caught, or the algorithm or the system that went through the through and redacted the personal information is too
yes.
shallow,
Mm.
right? It's not like powerful enough. Then what happens is the AI is trained on this information, and when it actually comes out on the other side, it might actually be spilling up some of the private information that it has no business knowing, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
So that's super important, I think, to keep
No,
not just
absolutely. I
like
think great
your.
question by Sujan Adhikari. Sujan, if you would like to
Mhm.
understand more, yeah, let's connect offline. So you have my LinkedIn access. So let's connect and discuss. Yeah, it's a long question, but it's very valid question. It's the question
Mhm.
for today. Yeah, we need to understand.
Right,
Please
right.
reach out to us, Sujan. Happy to connect and collaborate with you. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I've seen a few hands up, right? So
Yeah.
we don't have an ability to turn on the mic, right? So if you guys want to just ask questions, please go to Q&A and ask questions. I do have another question. Let's see if we get time for this. For your questions, but please like type in your question in the Q&A section. I had one question for both of you, really, like
Yeah.
really quick. So market research is often seen as more of a traditional field, right? This is the sector that we're in. So how do we convince, or how do we talk to these new companies or new people that want to get into AI, right? But they have all these concerns about like privacy, security. How do we talk about responsible AI? How do we talk about, hey, AI is like wild and crazy and it can do all these kinds of harm, right? But there is also like good there, and there are ways that we can mitigate the risks and keep moving forward. Perhaps let's start with Dr. Damodar on that.
Yeah, so see, we are also in touch with a lot of market research companies. There are large in nature, small in nature, and good that you are research scientist. I know you from your background. So while doing research, I feel that of course the responsible ethical piece we all have to be. It's nothing that you want to create something and sell it for commercial purpose. Of course, the business will come later, but the
Hmm.
trust accuracy piece actually we all need to look after it. And I'm happy to call you Prajwal once you're back to US. I know you are in campaigning in Kathmandu, so so yeah, so when you are back, so let's connect and we can deep dive. And if you want more information, what you do, definitely, happy to help. Yeah, but
Yeah, yeah, it's
I want to
awesome.
understand from academia perspective, Dr. Tashi. I mean, what exactly your take on Dr. Prajwal's question? Yeah.
Yeah, Yeah, Dr. Tashi, maybe you can give a few words on this as well. How do we, how do we move forward in this, and what kind of like confirmations or validations are people actually looking for, right?
Right.
When they are trying to use AI-based solutions.
And I think I'm actually a perfect example because I was very reluctant to use AI or even
Mm.
um, apply it in my work. But I kept my mind open, and and then before rejecting or accepting anything, I think you just need to verify. Try it out for yourself. Don't listen to, what a lot of noises out there. Could be bad, could be good. I think you should see for yourself. And the example I like to give people is that you have a knife in your house. It could hurt people, but you still have it. Why are you
Hmm.
not, cutting your vegetables some other ways? Because the knife has the potential to hurt you. So I
Yeah.
think that's an analogy I use a lot of time is that you have AI that can do a lot of good, but
Hmm.
also can do a lot of bad. But if you focus on how to not use it so that there are a lot of negative implications, I think just again, this is a evolving field, right? A lot of uncertainties. So I think it's best for us to just check and verify ourselves, at in any capacity you can. For example, if you're using something like Qualz.ai, okay, please use it first, and then make a decision, informed
Yeah.
decision.
Right, right. Yeah, super important to have like sandboxes, right? As for like new innovative features, and then once it's about to get out of the sandbox, right, to follow the experts and look at the guidelines and make sure you're compliant, right, and just make sure you don't make the same mistakes that others have already made, and
Yeah.
just try not to be another headline. For sure,
Agree.
for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I
Yeah.
met someone because there's a lot of people saying, oh, you learn from your mistake. And I met someone who said, that's stupid. Why do you have to learn from a mistake? You learn from others' mistake.
Others'
You
mistake.
don't have to
Yeah.
make mistake to learn from mistake. You learn from others' mistake. And I think
Right.
in using AI, I think we can see what other people are learning and making mistakes and learn from there as well.
Awesome. All right. I think we can take one more question, Dr. Damodar, if you have a couple more minutes, since it's being
Sure, sure.
recorded.
Absolutely.
Okay. So the last question that we'll take anyway, because we're at time, is automatic machine unlearning a practical, feasible approach to ensuring privacy in data, or is it more of a damage control measure? In general, what are current emerging best practices in removing sensitive data from AI datasets? Okay, yeah, awesome. So I guess I can give a little bit of a background
Sure.
because I've heard this term and I know a little bit about this term. So we have these machines. So just like I talked about earlier, AI systems might have been trained on data that is not fully private or not really safeguarded, so to speak, right, at the very beginning. And now it's there, right? And nobody really knows the exact data that these very large models are trained on. So there's a trend that you can say that, hey, go and change the AI, or AI, you're not supposed to release all this data at the very end, right? So now the AI already knows this, but then you can put these guardrails at the end. So is that could that be a good approach? Have you heard about that, or what is your take on that,
No, I
Dr.
can't
Ahmed?
agree more with you, Dr. Prajwal. I think well said. Normally, we say in general, right, on lawn and lawn, right?
Right,
So that exactly is applicable. That's why I said data is not necessarily not to be collected,
right,
collect responsibly and use it properly, right? And for the
right,
benefit of everybody, all stakeholder. It should not be
right.
only for specific people or organization or right. So yeah, so exactly I think she has pointed out. So I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's not, I mean, my take on that is like it's not really easy to unlearn, right? What you've already learned, especially if you're
Yeah.
an AI system, you can put all these like safeguards and stuff like that to try to take that out or pick it out once that model is built. But these models these days are like the larger ones are so huge and they are pretty much a black box, right? So although it
Yeah.
might pass some tests, the best approach is just to be sure at the very get-go and then clean and safeguard your data before the AI ever sees it. So, there's no risk of contamination because at the end, like these handicap or handicapped AI, or is like compromised AI systems may behave okay in some scenarios, but ultimately it's too big of a risk to take. Right.
Absolutely.
All right. So
All
with
right.
that, I think we should just end this session. Thank you so much, Dr. Damodar and Dr. Tashi, for giving your time. And
Thank
we're
you.
very, very grateful. And yeah, so we'll stay in touch. And if anybody has any follow-up questions, feel free to just like send them to me, and I'll see if I
Yeah.
can get Dr. Damodar and Dr. Tashi to respond.
All
Absolutely.
right.
No, thank you very much, Dr. Prajwal and Tashi and your team, taking time and yeah, it's wonderful to be here. Thank you.
Of course, and thank you for your time. And this is what we're trying to do with the webinar: is create a community so we can talk about issues like this, things like this. So thank you for your time again, and for all the participants as well. Thank you for attending. And I know we couldn't respond to all the questions, but just like AI should respect people's privacy, we should respect your time as well. So we'll end it
Sure.
here. But reach out to us on LinkedIn, or we have our emails out there. So thank you again.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Thank
Okay.
you all.